Hello there, I'm Cambridge Rory, or Cambridge English Teacher Rory from studentlanguages.com, and I'm going to be critiquing a CPE article answer. I apologise if I'm a little bit slow in thinking. I'm a bit sick today, so it may not be my best work, but I will give it my best shot. So, let's start by looking at this article question. An online cinema magazine has asked readers to send in articles on conflict in movies. You decide to write an article on the film you have seen in which you describe the reasons why conflict arises and how it affects the behaviour of at least two characters. Okay, so the reason why conflict arises and how it affects the behaviour of at least two characters. You should also explain why the conflict in the film is resolved or not. Okay. I'm underlining things which I think are the most important parts of the question. So this is the original answer, but we're going to make corrections on this one here. So, a conflict in a film. This article was written by... I have chosen the Dead Poets Society. Okay, I think it should all be capitalized if it's the name of the film. Unless it's an article or a preposition, then you should capitalize them. In order to depict a major conflict and pinpoint what triggered it. Okay, that's good. That's immediately addressing the question, why it arose, what triggered it, using different words, which is good. Okay, and to depict a major conflict is to explain this conflict. Which isn't necessarily asked in the question to explain the conflict, but let's see if you actually do that or not. Is this relevant to depict the major conflict? Is this what you do in the rest of the article? And therefore, is it relevant to the question? The film is a coming-of-age story of... Okay, so group is just one. So, as you can see the Google corrections. You need to say a group. Google is correct this time. A coming-of-age story of a group of elite prep school seniors in which an English teacher... Okay, to me, in British English, prep school is actually junior school. It means the young school. But my understanding is that it's an American film, and in America, prep school might actually be... Okay, yeah, it might mean senior school teachers. Worth checking. You can check that yourself. Of elite prep school seniors in which an English teacher enheartens... Yeah. I like the word enheartens, but Google doesn't like it. But I think it's a word. It's disappeared, it's squiggly line now. I was saying encourages, but I think enheartens is fine. It's a nice word. And it's not such a common word. So I'll add that to my assessment here. Language. Less common. Okay, I'm going to be writing comments here in the content, communicative achievement, organisation and language, because that's how the examiners mark your work in the exam. The language, so far, I think it's fine for an article. I think it's appropriately kind of informal, I guess, with I have chosen. So enhearten is like a kind of emotional word. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine for an article. So, in which an English teacher enheartens them to choose their own lives irrespective of the outside pressure. Yes. Good. Irrespective is a good word as well. I would maybe say to choose their own lives. I think we could be more specific or explain it better what you mean by their own lives. To choose their own paths in life, maybe a better way to say it. Irrespective of the outside pressure of I wouldn't say I would just say of outside pressure. Or outside pressures even, because there are many outside pressures. External would be another word you could use instead of outside here. Okay. Another option. Often we talk about external pressures. I'm just going to write something, a comment. Oh yeah, I was going to add irrespective to this language, less common vocabulary. Okay, so you're explaining the film here in the introduction, the general overview, what it's about. I think that's fine. It's kind of just giving the introduction, what you're going to be talking about. What film you're going to be talking about. So, the story takes place in the US in a segregated, all-male exclusive school. During the Cold War, imbroglio, war with a capital W. Imbroglio, good word. Bright future of the students. Okay, so we're talking about future rather than students. So we should say has. Has already paved for being acknowledged doctors. The bright future of the students has already, I think you need to say has already. Yeah, okay, we need to change this sentence a bit. Has already been paved. You could say has already been paved for the students. It's already been paved for the students to become acknowledged doctors, lawyers, etc. I think this is what you mean. Politicians. So this is a bit confusing, this sentence. Which breaks the communicative achievement. The introduction is fine. Perhaps the introduction is not as closely tied to the content as we need it to be. So I don't know if you can remember earlier I said that maybe describing the film is not actually that important, but describing the conflict and whether or not it can be resolved is more important. So the introduction is fine in terms of its communication, but perhaps the content is not completely correct or completely accurate. There are some sentences, however, where the communication, and this is not with the introduction, so I'll put this separately. The communication and flow of the writing is interrupted. I don't think it's down to grammar or specifically vocabulary. I think it's just the general idea of the sentence is a bit confused. It's just written incorrectly. I don't think it's a specific grammar or vocabulary problem. Perhaps it could be something to do with lacking the appropriate language to explain an idea is lacking at times. So maybe it is a bit about vocabulary, but it's not entirely to do with vocabulary. Politicians. Okay, the film begins with the arrival of the new English teacher, John Keating. Little does the strict headmaster know. Good. It's good language, good grammar. Little do we know. Evidence of an understanding and accurate use. Some less common grammatical structures, for example. Little does the strict headmaster know. Good. That John is going to stir up the still water of the microcosm of this highbrow society. Yeah? Good sentence. Good vocabulary. As soon as John sits behind the pulpit, another good word, he begins to plant novel concept into their students. Yeah, concepts. Or a novel concept, or concepts, plural. So again, be a bit careful of this, when to use an article or when to use plural, when to use singular or when to use plural. Make sure you're using plural words when you need to. And also make sure you're using the correct verbs to correlate with those, whether it's third person or a plural verb that we need. So, plant novel concepts into their students, as it were. Okay. Yeah, you could also say into his students, as it were. While other teachers indoctrinate their students, John Keating champions individualistic ideas in lieu of conformity. It's good as well. Good in lieu of conformity, and highlights carpe diem credo. Credo. Seize the day. Yes. Good. So another good sentence. Moreover, the unorthodox teaching approach draws the attention of the die-hard principal who has become downright hostile towards him. This is good. This is good language as well. The despotic principal warns him that his teaching method is not congruent with the school's traditional principles. Despotic, good word. Okay, and the language is still appropriate for an article, I think. I'm just going to check that what you're saying here is, well, it is to do with conflict. You're right. He's going against the system. So the question asks us, describe the reasons why conflict arises. Yes, okay, that's what you're doing. how it affects the behaviour of at least 2 characters. Okay, we haven't gone in. Actually, you kind of describing how it affects the behaviour of the principal so far. So that's 1 character. Let's see if you bring in another character. Okay, we haven't got to this yet. So far there was a problem with the language, a problem with communicative achievement. So I don't know so much about this yet. Seems okay. I'm going to give that a 3 for now. Language has been good, I think, so I'm going to give that a 4 for now. Even though there are times when it's lacking. Maybe keep it at 3 actually, and then let's see how the rest of the writing goes. Nevertheless, the consummate teacher continues to enlighten their pupils. Okay, so again here it's this thing about singular or plural. We're talking about teacher singular. So, his or her pupils by any means. Okay, it's a he. We know it's a he, right? We're talking about John Keating. So I would probably say to enlighten his pupils. I think this gender subject is going to become much more complicated with the language now and into the future because times are changing generally. So could be argued that there is okay to use. Language evolves. So the consummate teacher continues to enlighten his pupils by any means. Embracing, you don't need to say off, just embracing his novel ideas. The entire class are undergone massive change. Okay. Undergo, I would just say undergo. The entire class, and because it's it, say undergoes. The entire class undergoes massive change at the preternatural speed. Suffice it to say that students experience a sense of freedom as they would not have been dare to envisage, as they would not dare. Okay, you could say as they would not have dared to envisage, but it's not passive. So it's the same with this thing above, are undergone, and here you're using, it seems like a passive tense, but we don't need to use passive tense. It's just active. They do something or they don't do something. Here they would not dare to, as they would not dare to envisage. Or if you wanted to say in the past until now, you could say as they would not have dared to envisage. Sometimes I'm pausing the video because there's some loud vehicles going past, which I apologise for, if you can hear background noise. One of his students, Neil Perry, is aspiring. He is aspiring to be an actor, because to aspire is a verb, to be an actor. But he was forced to smother his innermost desire. This student's fate, singular, so it should be has thought to be, is, yeah, okay, is thought to be sealed. Likewise the other peers. We don't normally say likewise and then a noun. You could say like his other peers. Or, yeah, maybe just like his other peers. Or similar to his other peers. Or along with his other peers. And better to say his because it's more specific. His peers, not the peers, it's more general. His peers, more specific. Like his other peers. Art has been dismissed as a mindless entertainment in this circle of high-class people. Okay, good. Yes, here passive use is fine. So there's been, I'm going to write that down in the language area. Of some grammatical structures. Actually, it's not inappropriate use. Well, it is a little bit. Just some inappropriate use of certain grammatical structures. For example, the passive voice, and these are not always used correctly. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping the language at 3 now, unfortunately. Art has been dismissed as a mindless entertainment in this circle of high-class people. Yeah, art is uncountable, so you can just say as mindless entertainment. Entertainment, sorry. It's also uncountable. You could say as a mindless form, with a mindless form of entertainment, or just as mindless entertainment. In this circle of high-class people. Neil's stern father sustains him wholeheartedly, inasmuch as he follows his predestined path. Therefore, he prohibits him to step on the stage. I think maybe we need to revise this sentence. He stops him. To sustain something is normally to keep something. Oh yeah, no, I understand. So he's keeping him. He's going to support him, etc. if he follows his predestined path, which it's not acting. Okay, makes sense. Therefore, he prohibits him to step on the stage. Yeah, to step onto the stage, we normally say. You could actually say he prohibits him from stepping onto the stage. That's more often what we say, to prohibit someone from doing something. Prevents him from stepping onto the stage. The boy has to lie and to perform in a play without the consent of his father. I don't think he has to lie. Probably chooses to lie. Or does he have to? Maybe he does have to because the teacher makes him. He has to lie and perform in a play without the consent of his father. His bold decision to be whatever he wants to be vindicates all of Keating's teaching days. To be his bold lie, whatever he wants to be, vindicates. Because it's one lie that vindicates all of Keating's teaching days. Yeah. There's quite a few language things, so I'm going to, unfortunately, despite the good parts, bump it down to a 2. All of Keating's teaching days. A lot of them are simple things, I think, to do with like singular and plural, which can be sorted and fixed fairly simply, I think. When the truth comes to light, his father withdraws him from the school, and to make matters worse, enrolls him in a military academy. Okay, yeah, I say enroll with 2 L's as well. Enrolls him in a military academy. The desperate Neil, feeling pressed, not being. just feeling pressed. Or either being pressed or feeling pressed, one of the two, and not both together. Into a corner, makes up his mind to take his own life. Apparently the headmaster immediately makes responsible the new teacher of Neil's death. Okay, this can be written better. The headmaster immediately makes the new teacher responsible for. Normally say responsible for. It's a classic mistake that Latin language people make, people from Spain and Italy, I notice. Because responsible is an adjective. And in some other languages I think it's a noun. But in English it's an adjective. And we always say responsible for. So he makes the new teacher responsible for Neil's death. Subsequently, he fires him. Although the principal replaces him and starts to teach English, no one can impede the inevitable societal changes which are on the looming horizon. Yes, okay. Okay, so before we get to the conclusion, let's go back to the question and see if we've answered it. So, the reasons why conflict arises, okay, it's this struggle between new wave, new methods of teaching and doing what we want versus conventional, traditional ways of doing things. How it affects the behaviour of at least two characters. Okay, so you've mentioned how it affects the behaviour of the student, Neil, and you've also mentioned how it affects the behaviour of the principal, but I feel like this could be made clearer. I feel like this could be made more obvious and separated more clearly. So I'm going to write here. Okay, well, just before I do, let's see if the rest of the question's been answered. You should explain why the conflict in the film is resolved or not. Seems like it's not resolved. Why isn't it resolved? Because people, some people want to keep change, some people don't want to keep change. But I think you could also answer this more obviously, more clearly. So this comes down a little bit to content. So let's say, and community achievement. So most of the content is relevant to the question. However, some parts could be made more explicit and obvious. For example, in this last part of why the conflict in the film is resolved or not. And I think when it's this higher standard, when it's CPE, I think we need to be achieving that better in order to get a 3. So I'm going to give it a 2. Communicative achievement is kind of tied to that as well. So some senses where the some parts where the communication and flow of writing is interrupted. That's true as well. Either through language, most of the time through vocabulary or grammar related issues. Just interrupts the flow a bit. And some of the main arguments main points of the question are not easy to distinguish, because they're not, as I said earlier, they're not explicit enough in their separation, or then it doesn't feel like you're addressing the main points as a whole point. It's kind of like you're discussing it in another way, if that makes sense. So I'm going to give that a 2 as well. The organization, I mean, from a basic standpoint, seems okay. You have the main paragraphs. Again, unfortunately, it's kind of all linked again. The organization, like, I would maybe separate it slightly differently, and address the point separately and say, like, okay, first I'm going to talk about why it arises, and then I'm going to say how it affects the two characters, and then I'm going to say why it's resolved or not. So I would probably organize it in a slightly different way. And for that reason, I think I can't give it a 3. So the overall article is structured with clear paragraphs, and I think you use some linking phrases and stuff in here as well. Like, when the truth comes to light, that's quite a nice phrase. With clear paragraphs and various linking devices and organizational patterns. However, some of the content could be organized in a more structured manner, I think. Clear ideas, one paragraph, one idea, another paragraph, another idea. Okay, let's read the conclusion. So, in conclusion, the remarkable protagonist has left an indelible mark on the millions of viewers worldwide and altered the perception of teaching. Indelible is a good word. Yeah. He just helps the boys. Interesting. So you mean, like, yeah, affects viewers in real life, altered the perception of teaching. He just helps the boys whose desire to break free from their fathers and teachers. He just helps the boys whose desire is to break free. The boys' desire is to break free from their fathers and teachers' restraints. The restraints of their fathers, the restraints of their teachers. Yeah. I feel like the conclusion doesn't really, again, explain, like, answer the question explicitly. It doesn't really mention okay, so affects people worldwide. Okay. I guess it's kind of talking about conflict a little bit. He's helping them to break free, which is causing conflict, I suppose. Kind of looking at that again. Yeah. But I feel like it could probably be tied in a better way. Perhaps answering this part. But really you want to answer this in the main body, I think, and then your conclusion should be a sort of summary of all of these 3 points, which I don't feel this conclusion is exactly. I feel like it's a bit different. So, they're my main ideas. I hope you found them useful. And let's have a look at this on this scale here. So we've got 2, 2, 2, 2. I don't think it will require much to move some of these up to a 3. I'm the first content community achievement organisation are kind of linked in a way. Like if you could structure it slightly better and make it more obvious which parts of the questions you're answering, I think that would help a lot. And then with language, addressing this thing about singles and plurals, that would make a big difference. So even though it looks like quite a low mark, I don't think it would take too much to increase it considerably. Just bump each of these up by one thing, and then you're passing. So that's my overall thoughts. I hope you found it useful, and yeah, good luck with the rest of your preparation. I've been Cambridge Rory, or Cambridge English Teacher Rory, from studentlanguages.com. Bye bye.